All right. Well, welcome back to another Third Thursday. It is October, and today I'm excited to have Kent Phoebus, who is the pastor of Vision and Strategy for Southshore Church in Crownsville, near Annapolis. And Kent is also helping co-host the Youth Leader Summit this year in just a couple weeks. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But Kent, tell us a little bit about your youth ministry and your youth serving youth leadership background.
Yeah. Um, I served in student ministry for 20 years. So full time. I did some, I guess previous to that, did some kind of intern type stuff and those kind of things. But felt God calling me into youth ministry. Did that a couple different churches over 20 years. And loved every minute of it. And it was one of those things where, uh, people always ask me, they're like, hey, when are you going to become a real pastor? Or is this what you're going to do forever? Those kind of things. Like, I think they thought they were trying to be helpful when this is what I knew I was called to. And so I did. My prayer always was that I would do it until I wasn't supposed to. And then when my time was up, that God would move me on and kind of take me away from that. And I would say it'll be 6 years in December that felt God taking me away from student ministry into a different role. And but I would say over the past year or two, I've kind of I don't want to say I have the bug to jump back into working in youth ministry, but helping with youth ministry. And so I love helping with volunteers and or people who are leading in ministry and trying to help with what I guess some whatever level of expertise I may have to be able to help them in that way. And so yeah, that's where it was. That's what I did, and loved every minute of it. But I'm also was like I said, my prayer was that when it was time to leave, it was time to leave. I just wanted to be able to step away. And but yeah, I definitely think back to those and cherish those moments that I had for sure. So
Yeah, and I think it's kind of different with youth ministry and kids ministry because you mentioned it. Like some people see it as a stepping stone to moving
sure.
into a pastor or planning a church and being the pastor of that church planning. So that's definitely a lot different than a kids ministry director or leader. They're kind of in it until Jesus comes back. But
Sure. Yeah.
the youth pastor position is always like, so this is what's your long term goal?
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
interesting that
Right.
you said that. And so you've served in youth ministry in all different size churches, and you guys have
Yeah.
been kind of like West Coast, East Coast, kind of, so you've seen kind of cultures.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was probably more north south, not I would
Yes.
not west coast. Yeah. So, um, but but yeah. So I've gotten to see a variety, and like you said, different size churches. Most of the churches that I was a part of, I started the student ministries that they had there, the youth ministries, and so that was that was unique in some places because a lot of times you walk into something that's already somewhat established or whatever, and so a lot of places I walked in, they either didn't have anything at all, or they had parents who were kind of trying to do something for their kids. And so, I kind of came in and started something new and fresh, which now that I think back to it, I mean, my first job I got, I was 22 and had never been in ministry before. And in all honesty, I had no clue what I was doing, and so they handed me the keys, as they would say, and I was just like, "Let's see what happens." And so, uh, but yeah, I think back to that. But the experience of different, like you said, different churches and those kind of things, I think that's been helpful for me when I do try to help other leaders with what they're dealing with. I've been there before in different sizes, different kind of settings, and those kind of things. So that's been helpful for sure.
Gosh, I think about my oldest son's 22. I can't imagine him being handed the keys to run or start anything really aside from,
Oh,
his truck. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was fun for sure. So
so speaking of fun, like, do you have a favorite memory or a funniest story from your youth ministry time? I know I have some of my own from kids ministry that I love to share, but do you have any of like never forget
mm.
moments of youth ministry?
I mean, listen, 20 years of doing that, there's a million of them, right? So as far as like favorite things, I think of summer camps and those kind of things. Like just for us, when we did summer camp, I put summer camp together myself and got the speakers, the band, and we went and met somewhere and did everything ourselves. And so we got to see a lot of fruit from that because it was very catered to what we needed as a youth group. And so I think back to those and just remembering kids during that week coming to know Jesus in a way that definitely transformed their lives years later, as I hear back from some of those kids that are either in ministry or they're serving at a church just as a normal attender, but they're not in necessarily a church position, but they are a viable part of a church, just serving in a capacity as an attender. But just getting to hear some of those stories from the kids and them saying that summer camp was where those kind of things, or even just youth group as a whole. It's funny. I just had a kid from a past youth group that just texted me and was saying, somebody asked him, who influenced you to get into ministry? Because he's a pastor, and he was like, yeah, I was just telling him all about how much you influenced me. And I just want to thank you for doing that and that kind of thing. And so those things are cool to hear. It's cool to hear, but also makes me feel old because he's married and has kids now. And so I'm just like, man, I was doing that for a long time. And but funny story. I mean, oh my gosh, there's so many of those. I mean, one of the first ones I can think of is we were on a trip and we got pulled over by the cops. And while we got pulled over by the cops, we were driving two vans I was at church in Georgia. We were driving to Florida. We got pulled over by the cops. And because we were reported for kidnapping kids. But it was kind of, I would say, partially my fault. I had at some point mentioned to kids in the youth group that when I was in youth group, we had made a sign that said, "Help, I've been kidnapped." And
No.
that was funny in 1990 something, like 1993.
Right.
You could do
Right.
that and that was funny and okay. But this is like 2000, like 10, somewhere around there, and it's not funny then, right? So yeah, definitely got pulled over. I had to provide the permission slips and stuff that I had to show that they were with us, and they had to ask the kids like, "Hey, are you here under your own will, or were you put in this van?" Yeah, it was a nightmare. I was like, that was not good. So
That is great.
yeah,
You're like, no, I have every intention of giving these children back as soon as
yes,
I get home.
yes. So yeah, there was things of that sort, man, all the time, and just stuff that I look back at it and I laugh at those things, or you can do that with. I was at a couple of different churches, and so when I think back to those churches, there's definitely very specific things that happen at those churches that I can laugh at now. Probably not at the moment when it happened. So yeah,
That's
for sure.
hilarious.
Yeah,
Well, in talking about your experiences, and you mentioned like starting from the ground up in some cases and stepping into ministries in some cases, I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit today about volunteers. And
sure.
so, kind of maybe start out by telling me like what makes a good youth volunteer, and kind of how do
Mm,
you recruit for youth volunteer, and like how many typically when I talk to youth leaders, it's the youth leader and maybe their wife helps out,
sure.
is kind of typical scenario. And they have
Yeah.
parents that help on trips and camps and things like that. But what's kind of like the ideal youth volunteer, and the ideal, like what you're looking for and how you kind
Mm.
of recruit that person?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. First of all, you're right. When you're first starting out and those kind of things, you'll take anybody that will help, right? So it's for the most part. But as you get going, I have found that people um, who I think those kind of leaders, specifically when it comes to youth ministry, need to be flexible leaders because uh, things will change a lot in some sense, but also working with kids, like specifically teenagers or middle school and high school students, you got to be flexible in the way that you do things, because that's going to it will not be very rigid a lot of times, right? So just in dealing with them, um, and then like I said, if somebody's willing to do it, willing to give them a try. and say like, hey, here's specific. I try to be specific about what I need from them, right? I need you to do this, whether it's lead a small group or, hey, can you just be a chaperone, somebody, just an extra body watching, making sure kids aren't going somewhere they shouldn't be, or would you be the person who takes our attendance when the kids are coming in or whatever. I tried to be very specific about the jobs I was asking them, instead of, I found that when I made the job that I was asking them to do too broad, they seemed to get lost in serving. They didn't know if they were doing what they were supposed to be doing, right? And so, or they felt like, hey, I don't think you need me because I'm not really sure what I'm doing here, right? And so I tried to be specific in that. But yeah, I mean, you you know, there's been times when I thought somebody'd be really good at it would be, you would say they checked all the marks of what you would say somebody would be a good volunteer for youth, and then they got there and I was like, wow, they're not as great as I thought they would be. And so I think there's some markers that you can look at, but I think I've found that test driving people in it was my best option of trying to find the right volunteer for that, and so um uh uh, I, in all honesty, too, another thing that I think of when I think about it is, there was a lot of times people that were willing to do it, but they were a little unsure about it. Those typically tended to be my better volunteers than the ones that were like, I'm so awesome at this. You need me to do this. And I learned over time that if anybody told me that I needed them to be a part of the team, I was like, okay, we'll see, right? Not always. I'd say a good portion of the time I was like, actually, I don't need you to be a part of the team here, right? So, but those are a few little things I think of for sure. So,
Yeah. So it sounds like giving them clear communication as to what
yes,
you need them to do and recruiting them maybe for a specific assignment rather than something
yes,
um, super broad. I think that's kind of the same kind of rings true in kids ministry a little bit too.
yeah,
Um, but then also finding someone who's like teachable, like you said.
yes,
I think I can help, but I'm not really sure. Somebody that you can kind of mold into that.
100%.
Um, and when you, like, recruit, do you recruit for, like, a forever position? I think you mentioned I heard you say something about, like, test drive, like,
Yeah.
recruiting them for a short term and saying, "Well, then we'll regroup after 3 months and see how this works for both of us." Is that something that you found that's been helpful in youth ministry?
Yeah. Early on, I did not do that. I think early on, I was like trying to find any, but when I didn't really know what I was doing at first either, it was like, if somebody was willing to help, I'm going to throw them in, and I just need them to be there and do whatever I ask. And there was never a set time of like, I don't know if I ever had the expectation that how long they would be there, but there was never, hey, give
Yeah.
this a try and see if you like it kind of thing. It was more like, I need people to help, and I'm just going to grab people and try to make it work. I think over time, though, as you were saying, I started realizing that I started kind of, it was an evaluation in some sense after somebody had served for 6 months or so. I just be like, hey, how are you? And are you enjoying this? Is this what you envisioned it would be? Um, do you feel there's a better way that you could serve the youth ministry? What's that look like for you? And so I just started trying to ask some of those questions, because I found that people were willing to serve, but when they thought it was like a never ending thing, that 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 would definitely keep people from wanting to serve. But then also, it kind of got my volunteers that were serving, when they didn't know if there was a way out for them. It's scary to tell people there's a way out, because then you're like, oh, they're just going to leave, they're not going to they're going to stop. But I found that if they know there's a way out, that they're less likely to be seeking that way, because they usually come to you and just say, hey, life's really busy, I'm probably not going to be very helpful for the next 6 months. Okay, that's fine, but I want to come back, right? And so
Mhm.
that those kind of things. But yeah, setting up some parameters, I think, definitely helps, for sure.
Yeah, and I think when you say, "Hey, why don't you try it out for 3 months or whatever," it makes it an easier yes
Yes.
for them, I think. And then just kinda that leads us into, like, how do you best retain those volunteers? And you mentioned
Mm.
talking to them and asking them questions and, like, listening to their feedback. So what are some other good, like, best retention for youth ministry volunteers so they stick around?
Yeah, yeah. I think uh, I think this one kind of goes without saying, but I think it doesn't happen as much as it probably should, is when it comes to volunteers, just making sure they know how thankful you are for them serving. And then when you see them doing something well, you encourage them for doing that, like, or point it out to them to make sure they know, because sometimes they don't even know. They don't recognize it, or they're questioning in their mind whether or not they've done
Mhm.
well with what it is that they've done. And so when you see it, that you encourage them with that. And then just being real clear to them what I call like a win is for them. So I remember for a while it was like a couple of the things we used to tell our leaders was, if you're meeting someone new to you every week, whether they're new to the youth group or whether they're just new to you, like you've never had a chance to meet them, like that's a win for you. Every Wednesday, when we met on Wednesday nights, every Wednesday night, if you're meeting someone new and get a chance to introduce yourself to them as a leader, like that's a win for you to walk away and know that you did well. If you had what we call a gospel conversation with a student on that night as well, like that was a win. I found giving them opportunities to know that they were doing well made them want to stay, because they're like, hey, I'm valuable here. I'm doing what I'm being asked to do. They walk
Mhm.
away with they walk away every week after we meet knowing that they were successful and kind of doing what it was that we hoped that they would be doing. So I think those are a couple things I think of.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying kinda goes hand in hand, or just overall, the bigger picture, communication with them. I
Yes.
know I know sometimes in kids ministry, I found the longer I was in it, the more I communicated, like, even the details. "Alright, we have this Sunday night. Here's exactly all the details you're gonna need to know." Because I felt like when they came into it confident that they knew we're all
Yes.
on the same page, and because there's nothing worse when, like, another volunteer or a parent asks one of your volunteers a question, and they're like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, "Ugh,
Yeah.
okay."
Yeah. 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 Uh, I was not great at that early on. That was probably one of the things that was the most frustrating to people that worked with me early on, was I was not great at communicating the ideas, because in my mind I knew exactly what was happening and what was going on, and but in order for them to be able to help me the best they could, they needed to know that as well. And so I think I would share details with them, but it wasn't enough. And
Mhm.
I got to a point where I probably started oversharing things to them, but I feel like I over communicating to them, and I feel like even though they didn't need the info, they were glad that they had it. They could take it and say, "Hey, he gave us all this information. I only need this bit, but at least I have it all." So that's kind of what I tried to start doing, because I learned definitely from the frustration of some of my leaders when they didn't know what was happening, or they didn't know till the last minute, and that was hard. Well, I can't help you because you just told me that we're
Right.
doing this tomorrow, and you asked me today, right? So those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that must be like maybe that's a gender thing with, like, the
Hmm.
guys. They always have it all up here, and then it's
Sure.
like, "Well, you gotta put, like, I need to know, I think that might just be a male-female thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably
'Cause
you're probably right. Yes. Yeah.
Um, but I think too, do you tend to find, spending actual, like, just time with your
Mm.
volunteers that maybe that doesn't have anything to do with, like, ministry, just spending time with them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We used to I can think of many times we would take opportunities just to invite all my leaders over to the house, and we'd have food and get a chance to hang out. I could cast some vision for some of the things we wanted to do. And that was probably, let's say we were there for an hour, 20 minutes of it was that. And the rest was just getting a chance to enjoy each other's company. And we felt like a team and a cohesive team that way. And so, but again, it goes to what I was saying too. It's like I was just showing them how thankful I was that they were part of what we were doing, um, and that they were valuable and that they were needed. And that's what I tried to. I think that was another way I kept them, is helping them understand that they were needed in what we were doing. That I can't do all this on my own. Specifically, as I was at churches where our ministry would grow and we had more and more students coming, I can't reach all of them. And there's, I always told my leaders, I was like, there's kids in this group that you specifically as a leader will be able to reach that none of us in here will. And so
Mhm.
I need you. And then there's another person that's unique and different, and they're going to reach a certain group of kids and so that's kind of, I try to always let them know that and help them understand that as they were doing. So,
Yeah, that's a really good point because I think, like in kids ministry, younger kids, they kinda attach on to kinda a friendly face, but
mm,
teenagers, middle schoolers, like, you've really gotta have some kind of, like, a similar personality, and if you just have
mm,
one youth leader, that youth leader's personality might not be every teenager's cup of tea, and,
correct.
so having many volunteers with multiple,
Yes.
different personalities and characteristics and gifts is gonna better guarantee that your kids are gonna, strike up a relationship with one of them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then get
I used to tell my leaders all the time, I'm like, listen, don't try to not be somebody you are. The middle school and high school kids will sniff that out real quick. They're like, okay, if you're, uh, you are a nerdy kind of dad or whatever that's serving, there's kids that are going to love that. Right. And, or if you're, you're a woman who's helping serve and you have a very, like a mom heart for people, there's kids that are going to love that and
Mhm.
they need that. And so I just always told my leaders, just be who you are. You don't have to be like everybody else. We need you to be you. And the kids that desire that or see that or comforted by that, they'll be drawn to you. So yeah, that's for sure. So
Yeah, and so you mentioned kinda having, like, leaders at your house and
mm,
giving a time of kind of almost sounded kinda like training, so
mm,
let's kinda dip into that for just a couple minutes and talk about, like, what kinds of training are good for youth leaders to have, and how do you I know there's different layers of training and
mm,
different types of training, like, there's more formal training, and then there's casual, like, "Hey, here's an article that's gonna be great for us helping with this event. Read it and
mm.
tell me what you think," or so what kinds of and how do you infuse that into a volunteer who's already, like, has a full-time job and they're busy and has a family?
Yeah, yeah. So a couple of things I tried to do, like you said, I had some. When we'd have people over, we try to use that as a meeting time. I would do uh, maybe a quick meeting before we met, like whatever night it was we met, just to make sure that they knew what was happening. I sent out a lot of emails with some of the information about what was happening. Like you said, articles. I would periodically send out things to them to read or to watch a video that I thought would be helpful to them. Back again, it's been 6 years now since I stopped doing this, but something I did towards the end with the last church I was at with my team is we created a Facebook page just for our leaders, and I
Mhm.
would drop a lot of stuff in there because, like you said, their time they may not have the time to meet all those times, and so what I would do is drop stuff in there for them, and then we could all comment on it or those kind of things. I also would do a live on that page with them, and the people that could jump on could. Those that couldn't, they could go back and watch it, and then they would end up if they had questions or comments or whatever, they could leave those there. But I just try to make opportunities. I try not to overdo it in meeting with them and training, but I know that making them feel like they're equipped or making those kind of things is super helpful to them being valuable to what we're doing. And so I'd rather, uh, I don't know, I'd rather give them multiple opportunities to learn, not necessarily have to meet all the time. I know people don't have the time to do that, but I try to figure out different avenues of ways of getting information to them, not overloading them with them, but I feel like it was enough for them that they wouldn't feel like they were getting spammed by me and
Yeah,
not want to read it. But I definitely tried to let them do that. And then another way that I did is I let them. I mentioned that I tried to give them specific jobs. I tried to let people lead in those jobs, and I found that to be helpful in training them. It was like, hey, I need you to try to do this tonight, and then let's talk about how you felt like you did, or
mhm,
give you some pointers about how I thought you did or whatever. Try to train in that way, and that was
mhm.
that was very valuable because that started allowing me to take a load off of some of the things that I was having to do. I mean, that's the one thing about um, youth ministry is depending on kind of the style of how you do it or how it grows or whatever. Um, at some point you're kind of running a mini church. If you're doing we used to do a service where we had worship and speaking and small groups, and we had all that stuff on one night, and it got it was a lot to do, and so I needed people to step in a certain position so I didn't have to worry about those things. And so putting them in those places to lead and then kind of evaluating that along with them, I think definitely helped them see where they were capable of doing stuff. And what's interesting is some of those people are still serving at the church that I was at um, because I was able to give them leadership opportunities. They were able to step in and keep that going when somebody else came along. They didn't have to find somebody to replace them necessarily. They were like, hey, if you want to do this, we've been doing this, or I'm helpful in this way or whatever. And so I think that was good for everybody, for those people volunteering and for the person that comes in next. So
Yeah, I think I love the fact that you kinda make the training having that personal connection and kinda taking time to kind of almost debrief with them after a
mm,
session personally gives you insight as to here's what they could maybe use some training into so that you're not just saying, "Hey, here's a training," and then some people feel like, "Well, that didn't really apply to me," or
right.
"That was a waste of my time."
Yeah.
So I love, the fact that making it personal. I know for myself too, some of the best I feel like training goes both ways because
Mm,
I was always learning as a kids ministry leader, and especially some of the best it's a type of training, I guess, was like a debrief after a big event. Like, we would
yeah.
debrief after VBS, like, immediately the Sunday after, and I had nothing but a pen and paper, and I just said, "Tell me all the things, what worked,
Yeah.
what you hated,
Yeah.
what you didn't like," because if they don't tell you, then they're gonna tell other volunteers, and then
Right.
it becomes, "Well, I don't
Yeah.
like the way they did that," but so
Yeah.
it's like, tell me all the things so that I can and some of it I might be able to change and some of it I can't, and some of it might be a light bulb for me and be like,
Sure.
"Oh, I was operating, full speed, not even thinking about that." So I think even that debriefing, large group and personal, like you're talking
Mm,
about, can be training kind of essentially,
yeah.
in that
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. Um, I always tried to keep a variety of ways I did that because I know in myself I learn differently than other someone else. Like, so like what works for somebody else doesn't always work for me, and vice versa. And so I knew trying to do variety of ways of getting information to them, or um, allowing them to learn in some way. I felt like that if I could mix it up, uh, intentionally do that I would kind of cover my bases with everyone with that. So that was kind of the hope behind doing that.
Yeah. I love that, and, so the training kinda leads us into, the Youth Leader Summit for this year.
Yeah.
Typically, I think this will be the 4th 4th or
Okay.
5th one I think that we've had, but this year kind of I've been working with you, and you've kinda taken the lead on that since, youth ministry is more kind of, I'm more of a kidmin person,
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
just kind of been, trying to help our youth leaders in our state convention, but you've got some really great ideas for youth leaders. You kinda come from that world, and
Mm.
so tell us a little bit about the Youth Leader Summit this year.
Yeah, yeah, no, we're trying to. I was going to say one of the things you're asking about training, and this helps with this is I try to do conferences as well, and so um, they're expensive, right? They can get and you got to travel and go so far, and it just like and for some reason they're never where I was at. It was always close by. I always had to go somewhere far away, hours away or hours and hours away, and so it wasn't always convenient. And so we used to do that, but that's kind of what we've been talking about with this youth leader summit is just trying to put an opportunity out for the churches in our convention to allow them to be able to bring their team and let us help you train them, right? And so some people may be saying, well, I don't even know what things to train them with or how to train them or whatever. We want to help you do that. And so the idea is that we're going to bring everybody together. And we're gonna have some fun with it. We have some food and giveaways and those kind of things. But most importantly, we want to be able to bring your team together, and you don't have to do any of the work. We'll do the work for you, providing the opportunities of the training, and then you get to sit with your team and then talk through the training stuff that we will do. It is. We're able to afford some of these great speakers that are going to be a part of this training because it is all video driven, but it's done really well. It's through Download Youth Ministry, which there's a good chance that a lot of people know of them or have used them. And so I loved Download Youth Ministry. It was one of my go-to resources that I used in student ministry for the longest time. I followed them for a while, and just kind of they were kind of the go-to people as far as people to look to, and they were innovative and they were doing well, and things were going good. And so and then they came out with a really great website that had a lot of great resources that were really easy to access and not expensive. That was the thing about them that I loved. They had quality stuff that was not didn't cost a ton, and that was because they had somebody to underwrite some of the costs for them, and so they just had a heart for youth leaders and making them the best they could be, and so that's what they were doing. And so we have an opportunity to use some of the resources that they have, and so there'll be a lot of different topics that we talk about. And again, my hope is that you bring the team, you get to meet other churches of what they're doing, but also you get to bring your group and your team and sit and be able to talk about some of the things that you're dealing with, and then be able to ask questions too. There'll be a chance to do that, and hopefully we can provide some guidance or some resource options or whatever that is for them in that.
Yeah, and if they don't, we've been talking a lot about volunteers and recruitment. If you don't have a team, this will be a
Right.
good chance to say, "Hey, I'd love for you to serve. Why don't you come with me to this?" And
Yes.
kind of
Yep.
see what youth ministry is all about, and try to
Yes.
gather, make it your goal to bring 2 or 3 people with you that might be prospects for your youth ministry.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I used uh, I used to do that, is use these kind of opportunities to get somebody that was like, I'm not really sure. It's like, hey, come see what it's about. If you like it, this may be the thing that helps you understand what it is that we're doing. And so, yeah, I agree with you. This is a great place to bring somebody that's maybe questioning whether or not they want to help, or they don't know for sure. It's like, hey, come to this and see what this could look like for you. So. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Youth Leader Summit is October 26th at Southshore at your church in
Yeah.
Crownsville, from 9 until I think it's 9 till noon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, now that you said that, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, yes.
But you can go to bcmd.org/events and find out the exact time, the training topics that are gonna be available, and you can register yourself and your team. And so, Kent and I will both be there. I know we're super excited, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing in addition to your regular job at South Shore, but now kind of, um, fulfilling some needs in our state convention with supporting and helping our youth ministry leaders that are out there now. I'm sure they're going to find that Saturday very valuable. And so we're looking forward to seeing everybody there. And just thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. So,
All right, we will see you all hopefully October 26th at the Youth Summit. Until then, we'll see you next month.
bye, guys.